Yay Networks.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Fitish podcast. I'm Jenna.
I am Francisco.
We have an exciting interview on today's show. And as you're listening to this, Francisco and I are literally in the middle of our move, and we will update you on all things moving as we get settled and figure out where we're going to be doing the show from on video in a very, very different background than what you're seeing right now. So we'll have it on YouTube and everything as always. But this week, I'm 40 now.
Yes. How does it feel?
I don't know, since as we're recording this, I haven't actually turned 40, but no, I'm 40 now. So I'm feeling great.
I'm so excited about being the same age.
I love what you did for me for my 40th.
I love it. I love you loved it.
So, but you know what? Last week I actually went and interviewed Dr. Kenneth Johnson. He is a renowned interventional cardiologist who for many, many years has specialized in functional medicine, which is something that I love that expression. I love to throw it around. I didn't even know exactly what it meant until I sat down to speak with him about it. This is actually the clinic. It's called Balance Vitality, which is here in Dallas. Our conversation is not surrounded around just Balance Vitality, but more, what his practice entails and such fascinating stuff.
Very insightful.
Such fascinating stuff. I can't wait for you to hear it. So we are going to introduce him right now, and hopefully y'all learn a lot about kind of our bodies and what's going on right now, especially if you are a woman in your mid-30s or you're turning 40 like me. I think you're going to learn a lot from this segment. So check it out. Can't wait to hear what you think. All right, we have an exciting guest on today's show. Thanks for joining us. Y'all know that I've been talking a lot about my aging journey because I'm, imminently turning 40 here. So I've been kind of exploring some various facets of my health that I would like to work on. And one of the places that I've been frequently visiting is called Balance Vitality, which is here in Dallas. But I'm so excited to actually speak. This is one of the first times we're going to speak at length about all my health questions. I have Dr. Kenneth Johnson, and you are, I'm going to get this so wrong, right? An interventional cardiologist is what they told me.
That's perfect. That's correct.
So just to get us started, tell us a little bit about your background, because I feel like you have a day job and then you've started moonlighting as something else. You want to tell me a little bit about your background?
That's a good way to phrase it. I've been a cardiologist for 24 years, but cardiology led me into the field of prevention, aggressive prevention, which then led to wellness, which then kind of led to functional medicine and anti-aging. So I've taken quite a journey myself to transition into a physician who really looks at the root cause analysis of disease and understands that prescription pills are not always the right solution for everything.
Yeah, and I know you're big into supplementation. We'll get into that in a second because y'all gave me some assignments. Yeah. But I'm so curious about this term functional medicine and functional wellness is getting thrown around a lot. I even find myself saying it to people. Oh yeah, I went to this functional, I've said it on the podcast before. I went to this functional wellness clinic. So what is functional medicine and functional wellness to you?
It's a good question. And you may get different answers from different people, but from my perspective, it really seeks to look at the root cause analysis of disease. In other words, traditional medicine, for example, we'll look at a blood test, and if your thyroid levels are abnormal, they'll put you on thyroid medicine. A functional medicine doctor will look at the thyroid abnormalities and say, okay, why are the thyroid tests abnormal in the first place? So we take it to another level to try to find the root cause analysis of problems.
Do you feel like with medicine sometimes, I guess in modern medicine and the way hospitals and a lot of doctors are working these days, the joke with a lot of us who believe in the more functional techniques has always been like, are they killing us to heal us? Are they killing us to treat us here? Is that a controversial opinion?
It is, and I'm going to admit that I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist in that realm. Mm-hmm. And I do think there's some truth to that. And I think a lot of it centers around the pharmaceutical industry personally.
Sure. There's just too much money. There's too much money and power.
Exactly.
There, right? To do that. All right. So, well, let's talk about anti-aging because like I said in the beginning of the show, I am turning 40 basically tomorrow. And I feel 40. I just want to be honest with you. I feel 40. And it's something that I know you hear a lot of people say, wow, I'm 60 and I feel 25. I don't. I feel close to my age. Some days I feel good. Some days I don't. That's kind of why I originally sought y'all's support in the first place, is because I've never really ventured down this road of what's going on with me. And of course, come to find out, y'all did a full extensive blood panel for me. And, I had low testosterone and a variety of other things we kind of reviewed. But when you see women approaching this age, these markers of 40 or even 50, what are some things, some kind of common denominators that you're noticing when it comes to their health?
Sure. So you hit part of it on the head. Hormone aberrations become very prominent. It could start as early as the 30s, but certainly in the 40s, really common. But it's important to realize that hormones just don't mean sex hormones. When doctors say hormones, a lot of people think, oh, estrogen, testosterone. It doesn't stop there. You have multiple hormone axes in your body. And the important thing about what we do and what I did with the blood work is to make sure that each of the hormone axes is talking to one another, because they exist in somewhat of a hierarchy in our bodies. And so you can have a hormone system that's downstream. For example, the sex hormones are low priority for our body, whereas our pituitary gland and our adrenal axis are higher priorities. And if you have an upstream problem, it can actually result in a downstream problem. So if the only thing you're looking at is testosterone and estrogen, you might be missing the big picture.
That's interesting. Where does cortisol come into play in this?
So cortisol is one of your adrenal hormones. So the adrenal gland is actually considered one of the master glands in the body, and it's responsible for maintaining balance in your body when you're under stress. So whether it's physical stress, psychological stress, emotional stress, the adrenal gland responds to that. And so in certain states of adrenal stress, you can have too much cortisol in the body, which is not good for your overall balance.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp, and I need to get something off my chest. I've really been struggling a lot more than I think I've realized with this decision to move abroad. Selling a house is a lot, and I think I'm going through this period of grief, even though I'm excited at the same time, and it made me realize that I think I need to have a little check-in session with a therapist at BetterHelp. A lot of people have this misconception that you only should be seeking therapy when you are struggling severely, that you can't get out of bed, you feel super depressed. And I couldn't disagree with that more. I think therapy can be utilized as a check-in of sorts when you're just struggling with a decision or you're just having a hard time processing some things that are going on in your life. And that's why I love BetterHelp. Francisco and I have utilized BetterHelp as a resource at all different junctures in our life and in our relationship. And I know that you would benefit a lot from it as well. If you have something you've been needing to get off your chest, do it with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Fitish today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Fitish. Ritual is a sponsor of the Fitish podcast, and I'll tell you what, y'all know I have been a fan of this brand since before they were a sponsor of the podcast. It's really the only supplement that I enjoy taking, mainly because, sure, it doesn't have a bad taste like a lot of the other ones do, but I also know that there's great ingredients, and they recently introduced Symbiotic Plus, which is a 3-stranded prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic to support a balanced gut microbiome. And I know a lot of us can't go a single day without seeing someone talk about gut health. And I'm telling you, I'm a believer. What a difference it makes. Sometimes you don't even know how bad you feel until you start feeling better. And daily disturbances, especially the things I'm going through right now, poor diet, stress, travel, not getting enough sleep, those things can really throw off our gut health. And not just that, Ritual also recently sent me the Sleep Bio series, Melatonin. Oh my gosh, it's the best melatonin I've ever tried in my life. And like I said in the beginning of this, I love the taste of these supplements. They are all coated and they just taste, either minty or like vanilla or lemon, like the one that I took when I was postpartum. I'm such a fan. I know you will be too. And you get a hookup with a discount. No more shame in your gut game. Symbiotic Plus and Ritual are here to celebrate, not hide your insides. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/Fitish. So start Ritual or just add that Symbiotic Plus to your subscription today at ritual.com/Fitish for 25% off.
I've almost been feeling that that's what I'm dealing with lately. I'm such a physical kind of recipient of my stress. A lot of people know they're stressed and they're more aware of it, I'll just kind of truck through stressful situations like what I was speaking with you about, this big move and this whole kind of new chapter of life, or work stresses, or you go through this postpartum kind of level where your hormones are crazy and you feel stressed. But I think that I physically really feel these symptoms later. So I'll go through stressful periods of time and then I just feel like shit, for a month later, and I feel terrible and I feel really lethargic, really run down, really low sex drive, which I didn't realize that was low on the totem pole. It's not low on the totem pole for my partner. Yeah.
Yes, that's a common statement. But if the adrenal gland takes precedence over the sex glands, then that is a low priority for your body. But what you've described is a very typical adrenal stress response, and the way you feel it as a delayed response to the actual stressor is very common.
So for women and men, but we mostly have women listening to the show that are listening, and you're kind of approaching, is it always around 40, or is it just kind of this age that you're seeing a lot of these changes? And I guess what I'm asking is, what do people need to do when we start to kind of hit these age markers and our health really starts to change?
Certainly. I think 40 is a very common age, although it can happen as early as the 30s. 20s are unusual, but we see it. But 40s is right in the middle of where all of these changes tend to occur. And so what you're dealing with as a female in particular, not only do you have to deal with the adrenal gland, but you have to deal with aberrations in estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Men do need estrogen for certain functions, but we don't really feel it if our estrogen's too low. You guys, you have a triple whammy because you're dealing with 3 sex hormones in addition to all of the other hormones in your body, including growth hormone, cortisol, DHEA. So you have a lot to deal with from a physical perspective.
So what are some, maybe, I know we can take kind of the medical approach. I want to talk about both because obviously there's some things we can do on our own to improve our own health on a day-to-day. What are some, both, I guess, on a medical level? What kind of protocol do you recommend here? What do you specialize in here? And then going from there, the more tangible kind of day-to-day things that a lot of people listening, if they can't get into the clinic right away, what are, but basically twofold there.
Certainly. So from a medical perspective, the first key component is to diagnose the abnormality. And so you've referenced kind of the comprehensive blood work that we do at Balanced Vitality, and that's step one. So we make the diagnosis and see what the hormones are doing. And then from a medical perspective, the sex hormones can be replaced in different ways. Sometimes it's with oral formulation, sometimes it's a pellet, sometimes it's a cream. The adrenal axis, generally there's no prescription medicine that helps the adrenal axis except in severe cases where we administer medical steroids. And then growth hormone administration was very popular in the 90s, but there's some downsides to long-term growth hormone. So we don't really use that as a tactic these days in most adults.
Yeah, we would hear about that a lot with a lot of male singers, right? Weren't they all taking a lot of HGH for their vocal cords and voice and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So that, but that's not as popular anymore.
Not as popular because of the downside effects. And then from a non-medical perspective, all the things that you hear about that seem so simplistic are important. Diet. If your diet is screwed up, your hormone status is going to get screwed up. Exercise. The best way to raise testosterone is still exercise, both in men and women. It's a powerful motivator of testosterone increase. Sleep. You need adequate sleep, and sleep disturbances are so pervasive in individuals, both men and women these days, that it's those simple things. They seem simple, but if you don't get control of those, you're starting off behind the 8 ball.
So if you'll hear that, the tangible things are not easy. It's discipline. It's discipline in everything that we do, probably, but there's just so much distraction these days. Let's talk about, I always say it's the elephant in the room, but it's a much smaller elephant now, the weight loss and weight and the weight loss shot. That was an original reason I also was interested in coming to y'all. I know it's something that you offer, and my rose-colored glasses came off pretty quickly when I realized that a lot of people were doing the weight loss shot for a long time. I didn't know about it, and I know originally that wasn't even really why that, the tirzepatide or Mounjaro is something that you recommend. Could you just give us a brief, a lot of people are scared of it, side effects, positive results. I did a month treatment of that, and I was super happy. I struggled with a lot of I wasn't super overweight by any means, but I did IVF. I had that hormonal weight gain. I was always able to get in shape, but as I've gotten older, I found that either I wasn't, working out and dieting hard enough, which people will argue you can do it naturally. But I think there's some great uses for this medication, right?
I think so. And I think the number one thing to point out, Jenna, is that 67% of the U.S. population is either obese or overweight.
Yeah.
So we have an epidemic of weight. And so these drugs have really been a godsend. And really, there's two compounds. You mentioned tirzepatide under the brand name Mounjaro. The first generation agent was semaglutide, which is under the brand name Ozempic and Wegovy. And so those medications stimulate certain protein receptors in your body that create an environment that favors weight loss. The fundamental difference between the two is that Mounjaro hits two different protein receptors, whereas semaglutide hits one. And it seems because of that combined effect on tirzepatide, the side effect profile is a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
The principal side effects that you see are almost all gastrointestinal. So nausea was very prominent with semaglutide. Constipation, very prominent with semaglutide. And then the third one, not so much gastrointestinal, but fatigue, kind of profound fatigue. In the tirzepatide patients, all of those side effects are there, but they're attenuated. And interestingly, instead of the constipation, you tend to see more loose stools or diarrhea on the
Interesting.
tirzepatide
Lovely.
side.
But I feel like I did encounter that,
Sure.
But I'll say, and speaking with other female friends that have taken Ozempic, the semaglutide, their issues were much more severe. But you don't see any are there negative consequences? Have these been around long enough to even know what's happening? Down
Certainly,
the road?
no, that's
Yeah.
a fair question. So obviously, semaglutide's been around the longest, and one of the beauties of using it on the weight loss perspective is you have the long-term data from the diabetics. So you remember, diabetics are going to take this medicine every week for the rest of their lives, or at least years on end. From a weight loss perspective, that's not the goal. The goal is to use the medication to get you over the hump, so to speak, get your body composition moving in the right direction, and then ultimately you hopefully won't need it, or we would use it in a different kind of a maintenance way. But long-term side effects, there have been reports of gallbladder disease. The interesting thing, or the confounding issue there, is that diabetics are predisposed to gallbladder disease. And so is the increased incidence of gallbladder disease with these compounds related to diabetics in the original trials? So we still have a little bit to learn there. The other kind of more serious side effect, pancreatitis, inflammation of the pancreas. Again, diabetics, especially type 2 diabetics, are at increased risk of pancreatitis. So it becomes a little bit of a confounder in the diabetic population, but those have been seen in the non-diabetics as well. So they have to be reported.
And I'm sure the argument can be made, like what you were saying about this obesity epidemic, is that so many other medical issues come from being overweight that at some point you kind of have to weigh, literally, you are going to be able to, you're going to sleep better, you're going to exercise more, all of these other things that are going to fall into place when you lose the weight, probably outweigh, the side effects of staying overweight.
I agree. And, if you look at my population, my cardiac population, but also my functional medicine population, one of the more common things I see is high cholesterol, and even people with insulin resistance working their way towards prediabetes and diabetes. Well, that can actually be cured with weight loss. It can go away. Cholesterol profiles can be dramatically improved with weight loss. So yes, there is a cosmetic aesthetic component to the weight loss, but there's truly a dramatic health benefit.
No, absolutely. Something I noticed in my duration of taking it, I have such a sweet tooth, and I know sugar is something that we'll talk about here, but I am so opposed to sugar. It really took my cravings away, kind of in a subtle way, but I just found myself very cognizant of how much all of us tend to probably overeat in moments. It really helped me kind of monitor my level of fullness. I think we're just not in tune enough in general with how much we're served and kind of our food. I mean, someone like you probably don't see it as much because I know you're you're very aware, of your diet and kind of your needs being a doctor. But I think so many of us aren't, and we just have these addictions to to food or to overeating or to sugar in general. And that was just such a pleasant and unexpected side effect for me with taking the medication, is that it really changed my, I had no craving for sugar. I almost didn't even want to finish a drink of alcohol either. I don't know if you've heard, or some people have told me that there's been some studies of people that were alcoholics kind of taking that medicine and not wanting to drink as much anymore, which is interesting.
Yeah, and in fact, the entire field of addiction medicine, not just alcohol, but other addictions, whether it be nicotine, has latched on to these agents as a potential cure or a potential therapy for different types of addiction. So we're waiting to see a lot of those trials, but almost everything you could think of that someone could be addicted to is being studied with these agents because of their potential to decrease the desire to have those adverse things.
Something I want to ask you about, and I know we can't sit here and make a lot of claims, and we're not going to do that, but I read a lot of articles from social media these days, which I never know if it's true or not, so who better to ask than you, but it seems that cancer rates in people my age or even younger in their 30s have been on the rise. I mean, is that true? Are you seeing that?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that cancer is the number 2 killer worldwide behind coronary artery disease. And so we do see a lot of cancers these days, and we see cancers in younger patients of all different types. So, obviously cancer scares people more than heart attacks do in general.
And you don't think that, you think heart attack should scare people more?
Well, I'm just saying,
as a cardiologist,
they're much more common. They're
Yeah.
the much more common cause of death. No, cancer is a scary thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to downplay that. But yeah, people are generally more scared of cancer, so it gets a lot of attention in the media, which is great. I'm glad there's awareness around it. But yes, I think we have to be focused on cancer prevention, cancer awareness, and part of cancer prevention is some of the simple things that I talked about, making sure that your body's in balance. For example, sugar is a bad player.
Let's go there. I was going to say, what are some, being as health conscious as you are, what are just some absolute on a day-to-day non-negotiables for you?
Reduce sugar. So sugar is the enemy for everything you can think of. Cancer cells love to eat sugar. That's a fuel for them. Sugar's bad for your body. Sugar promotes insulin resistance. So, from a day-to-day basis, avoid sugars. And in that same vein, I put processed foods. So, artificial sweeteners, similar thing. Tobacco, absolute must stay away from. So you don't
consume sugar at all. Fruit. You have any natural sugars?
I'll have some natural sugars and fruits. So, so I'm largely low carb keto.
Mm-hmm.
So even a lot of the fruits have a lot of carbohydrates in them. So the keto types of things that I eat are berries. They tend to be more keto friendly. And they have natural sugars.
No bananas for you around
here. No bananas for me. It's not part of my program. But I'm not saying bananas are bad. It's just not part of my program.
Got it. And how long have you been keto?
About 6 years now.
And you just noticed a huge change in how you feel and
dramatic energy level, able to maintain my body composition where I want it. It was a game changer when I did it. And I didn't do it because I was overweight. I fortunately have been blessed and have never really felt myself to be overweight, but I was experiencing a lot of that afternoon fatigue, and just switching those carbohydrates off made all the difference in the world.
If diet is so important, why do supplements matter so much?
So even though you can eat a balanced diet, supplements take you above and beyond just regular nutritional. So, when I'm talking about supplements, I'm not necessarily talking about vitamin C or B vitamins that you get from your diet. I'm talking about things that are going to address long-term issues in your body. For example, as you know, I wrote a book on the inflammatory basis of disease. And it turns out that inflammation is really the key to all evil in your body. And so I think that a lot of the supplements that I focus on really center on things that will decrease inflammation in your body. Inflammation leads to cellular disruption or cellular abnormalities. And when a cell can't function well, it causes premature aging and any chronic disease you can think of. Cancer, you brought up earlier, coronary disease, Alzheimer's disease. These are all actually inflammatory diseases at their fundamental metabolic level.
I hope my mom's listening. I told her no sugar. She's such a sugar addict, which a lot of us are to some degree. I mean, it is. It's like a drug. She goes, I can't. I feel like it's, and she doesn't do any drugs. She doesn't really even drink alcohol. She doesn't do anything. And I told her, I go, I think sugar is probably stronger than meth. I mean, that's how it seems to a lot of people. I mean, you can't, how long do you think with sugar? Because I know so many people listening feel this way. And for you, after 6 years of this and being keto, I know it gets easier, but how long do you think it can take your body to kind of break these, a sugar addiction, for instance?
I think
give people some hope. Yeah.
I think it's a long time, so you have to be patient.
Really?
It's not, it's not an overnight thing. Now, did I kind of quit overnight? Yes, but I wouldn't necessarily say that's the right approach to everybody. It's kind of like when I talk to my patients about smoking cessation.
Yeah.
Some of them quit cold turkey, and that's what they have to do. Some cut down every day until they get to 0. I'm fine with either one of those. And so if you approach it as a long game, you're probably going to have greater success. And so just by cutting down and I think fundamentally just being aware of what you're eating, reading packages, reading contents, that's really important.
Probably getting back to a place where do you prepare a lot of your food, or you have someone make your food, but you're following like some freshly prepared food for the most part?
Most of our food is freshly prepared. Probably at work is when I order, but I still order very keto friendly items.
What's the wildest thing you eat?
The wildest thing I
eat. What's your guilty pleasure?
Well, my vice is salt.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm going to cheat, and by the way, even on keto, I do cheat about once a month. And if I'm going to cheat, the 2 things that I like, pizza, French fries.
Good. Okay.
So I will, and I'll, this is a good lesson. I tried to do all the keto pizzas and the cauliflower crusts, and I realized
stuff's gotten pretty good. It's
pretty good, but it's not that good.
No.
So I would just rather have a real pizza every 6 weeks or so, and just satiate that part of my brain, and then I don't worry about it. So I've given up on making it 100% keto.
Right.
I would probably put myself in the low carb category these days, but I'm human, and I do cheat periodically.
So what going on in this world of functional medicine right now is really exciting to you, and you think people should be paying attention to? Because there's so much misinformation on the internet. Everyone's an expert now. We're talking through, all of the stuff that you're doing here, but what do you think has real legs and that you're really excited about?
I think a couple areas that are not really new, but the data keeps becoming more and more powerful. For example, you've probably heard of NAD infusions. NAD is a compound that's created as an end product of everything you metabolize in your body. And the ultimate use of NAD is to actually stimulate the production of something called ATP. ATP is the gasoline that all of your cells run on. And so your cells have to have a constant supply of ATP. The problem is, as we get older and as we get exposed to chronic diseases or bad habits, our cellular ATP levels drop. And when a cell's gasoline goes down, it loses its ability to function at 100% capacity. And so that's what causes you to prematurely age and develop disease. So NAD infusions is something we're very proud of in the clinic. We can replenish the cellular ATP levels by giving NAD in an intravenous way. So,
is this how does this treatment work? Is it weekly? Is it
there's a loading phase where you get 2 infusions a week for 4 weeks, and then after that, the maintenance phase for general anti-aging is 1 infusion a month. Treatment of other conditions, for example, NAD works incredibly well for people that have long COVID or long hauler syndrome, and they may require more frequent treatments, but it's been an amazing game changer in our practice of treating that patient population.
No, that's great. I think a lot of people don't know a lot about NAD, and it's a word I've only heard kind of thrown around since coming up here. So, but it's something I could do at my age.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, any adult can do NAD, and it's fantastic. One of the other therapies that we like here, also, again, nothing that's hot off the press, but has been around for a while, but we've understood more and more each year is ozone. So
tell me about that, because that's something I think I'm going to actually partake in today. I've never had it before. I know it's another kind of IV sort of therapy.
Yeah. So the air that you breathe, oxygen, exists as two oxygen molecules linked together.
Are you all writing this down?
We call that O2. Well, if you run an electric current through O2 molecules, they break apart, and a certain percentage of them come back together as three oxygen molecules, and that's ozone. So ozone is incredibly bioactive, and so we just create ozone from oxygen in the office, and we can use it in different ways. What you're talking about is a procedure called major autohemotherapy. Sounds very technical, but all it is we put an IV in your vein. We actually drain about 200 cc's of your blood into a bag. We inject the bag with ozone gas, and then we reinfuse that back into your bloodstream. What happens there is the ozone has multiple effects, one of which is to hyperoxygenate the blood. So you're getting this wildly oxygenated blood going back into you. But the more important part is that ozone reacts immediately with cell membranes to create substances known as peroxides. Peroxides are part of your body's natural defense system whenever you're fighting off infection or inflammation. So you get a high concentration of peroxides that travel throughout the body, and they're potently anti-inflammatory, potently stimulate the antioxidant pathways. It's really quite amazing. And I think that when you get your infusion today, you'll feel it immediately.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, hey, anything to feel better as long as it's healthy. I think as you get older, when you're young, you want to do things to feel good and you don't care about what it does to your body. You want to look good and feel good kind of at any expense. And as you start to get older and you have a family and you go, I want to feel good every day. I want to live. I want to feel that I'm living and not just kind of dragging through the day. And at the end of the day, I'm so exhausted, even with a good diet. But I know my biggest weakness has been lack of supplementation and probably my hormonal imbalance. So I've been feeling really great with the new protocol that I've been on. If y'all, live in the DFW area, Balance Vitality is the name of Dr. Johnson's clinic, which you can obviously come in here. Otherwise, if people, I know you're a published author. Tell us the name of your book.
My book is called Understanding Microinflammation, the Common Link Between Aging, Cancer, and Coronary Disease. And it's really a nice exploration of how inflammation is the evil in your body. And it's the center stone that can digress into all these other disease states. So
this has been super informative and educational. I hope I didn't lose some of y'all with your very intelligent speak. Yeah. But thank you. I think this is all really fascinating. I think sometimes it takes people a minute to come around when you hear about wellness trends and you hear about the athletes and the celebrities and what they're doing, what they're taking. They were just a little bit ahead of us on the game here with certain things, but this has all been great. So again, it's Balanced Vitality in Dallas. You can contact for an appointment. You want to come in, right, and just get a blood panel is kind of the first step of protocol there. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
If anything I took away from all of that, by the way, it's just how sugar is the worst enemy to our body ever. And I really hope I can get my mom off of as much sugar as she has. She has so much sugar.
If you can do that, I think we should make it a goal. And I'm not saying that we should just staple her mouth. Really found ways that she can cope, find meals, maybe fruits that she will like. No, because I'm talking about sugar. I hope you don't take that as I was this morning in the kitchen and I saw her pancakes, they were floating in syrup. How is this going to go well, in the long run?
This turned into like a Saw sequel real quick. Staple her mouth, cut back on sugar, staple her mouth shut. I'm like,
Candy, I love you, and I'm really care about you.
I'm scared to move to Mexico with y'all. We're in the middle of the move right now, as we said in the beginning of the show. But next week, we will be coming to you from the the surf town in Baja, Mexico, where we have decided to move our lives. And there might be some animal noises in the background of every podcast you listen to going forward. But we will have quite an adventure, I'm sure, to fill you in on between closing on the house and making a move and Fran's drive 33 hours with a friend down to Baja in the cars and everything that has ensued since then. So I really hope you'll tune in for that one.